we get started, folks, make sure you hit the pause button. Okay, go down below. There's a Rumble link. Go over to Rumble and follow us over there. QFS1776.com is, without question, the holy grail of what's to come. Okay, T-shirts. You got to get yourself decorated. This way people will ask you, what is XRP? What is the quantum financial system? What is this? What is that? And you send them where? To QFS1776.com, where they need to immerse themselves, because we're going to burn down this system down to the ground. And out of the ashes will rise the phoenix. There'll be nothing to go back to. Believe me when I tell you that. Also, our Telegram groups down below. If you want to learn what's coming and you're sort of a little scared, I understand. Believe me, I was there too at one point. And if you need more than $10,000 worth of XRP or $1 million worth of XRP, you come see me. Send me an email at QFS1776@gmail, and we'll get you as much as you want. Gold and silver. Welcome to CarminesGold.com. Don't waste not even a second looking. Cheaper prices just don't exist. How important is it for you to own gold and silver right now? What does it mean to me personally? There's an economy that's about to crash beyond what words can explain. In 5 words, I'm going to educate you on gold and silver. Are you ready? You need to own some. Simple. I hear you. I hear you. Juan, well, I already hit the record button. Guys, you know who Juan 07 is. I don't think he needs an introduction. I think at this point, he's definitely a lot more popular than a lot of the, super actors in Hollywood, which doesn't exist anymore. Juan, things are getting really complicated, man. There's a lot of jujitsu moves happen on both sides. We got Venezuela gangs taking over buildings in Colorado. We got the Hells Angels on the move. We got chaos in Israel. We got Donald Trump getting ready to jump into an orange jumpsuit. And I don't know if they're doing that for kabuki theater purposes, because he's going to probably jump in and jump right back out of that orange jumpsuit. And just to say, psych, you didn't get me. another part of the kabuki theater, which is very, very entertaining, if to say the least. I mean, this movie just keeps getting more and more complicated, brother. I know you're always around and moving about. Today you're in Idaho. Tomorrow you'll be somewhere else. I've never seen anybody move around as much as you do, brother. Welcome to the show.
Well, 1 second. I'll have the Alamazon.
Yeah.
So,
no question. How many of the cocktails?
4. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that, bro.
No worries. It's all good.
You can bring the soup. Thank you. Yeah. Actually, the salad with blue cheese, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. One of the things that you didn't list there that's happened today that's very few people are maybe aware of yet, the aircraft belonging to Maduro. Now, in Venezuela, a little bit of backstory, the primary players involved in the election interference in 2020 were based out of Venezuela, and had been for quite a while. They were run by Cuban intelligence operatives in Venezuela. Most anything that happens in Venezuela occurs because Cubans are running it. And so as Venezuela came off the rails, we moved people out of Venezuela to other parts of the world, entire families. And so Venezuela's been coming off the rails since their recent election, which has all sorts of questions. Early today, his aircraft, I believe a Falcon, which is an interesting aircraft, by the way, Falcon jet. It's a 3-engine aircraft. And what's really cool about the Falcon is you can lose any one of the 3 engines, and it technically is not even an emergency because they're in tight configuration at the rear of the aircraft. They don't affect operations control-wise. And so if you lose one engine, they just work around it, and it's not technically an emergency, unlike other aircraft might have. And so anyway, his very cool Falcon got seized by U.S. authorities. It was not a policing action, which is a very interesting little snippet there. And they brought it back to the United States. It was in the Dominican Republic, and they brought it back to the United States. So imagine having a claim as though you have authority internationally to grab somebody's whole airplane, fly it back to Fort Lauderdale here in the United States. And then what are they doing there? Oh, they're inspecting it. Let's take off this inspection cover, this inspection hatch, uh, take out this piece of upholstery and that piece, pull the carpet up here.
Well,
What are they looking for?
I know exactly the airplane you're talking about. It's made in France. The Falcon is a French corporation. And I have had friends of mine who used to work at Teterboro Airport back in the day, about 35 years ago, and no longer in contact with these people. But I know a little bit about airplanes. But yeah, it's funny because here you are reporting the news to me. I'm so busy reporting the news and being on the air that I didn't hear about this. I'm going to be honest with you. So it's like even the news people.
Well, some of it's not public. CNN covered the part about it being seized. Right. And then I think now they've said that it's back in Fort Lauderdale. But what they're doing is they're looking for signs that the aircraft was used to move drugs.
Oh,
and then the money. And then it was seized based on an executive order that Trump put into place regarding things involved in human and contraband internationally. Wow. And so then you have to jump ahead and you have to say, okay, so why go after this right this second? Well, what the deal is, if they decide they find, and you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to find what they're looking for. They know what's going on. They're going to find evidence that it was involved in some kind of trafficking of some sort, drugs, kids, something. And then it's a process, but it's probably not a long process to declare Venezuela and Maduro a narco state, and then begin the process of isolating the political leadership, Maduro and all of his cohorts, in relation to that, and isolating them, choking them down for eventually taking him into some type of custody, and beginning some type of a international prosecution process. So this is actually a pretty big deal. And although it seems innocuous right now, this starts a process, a very big process. So who else could be implicated in this? Look, Venezuela is run by Cubans. Are you one step away from beginning the process to further isolate Cuba? Yeah, probably. Yeah. So this is a very interesting moment. And again, this was done under an executive order put in place by Trump back in 2018, I believe.
Right. Well, listen, when I introduced you earlier, I said a mouthful. I said a bunch of things. Do you think the Democrats are actually going to go through with the sentencing? Yeah. Are they going to go through with the sentencing? Are you guys having a umbrella?
I gotta tell you. So when I sat down, it was calm. I just gotta pause for a second. When I sat down, it was calm. And in the last couple of minutes, since I sat down, the wind picked up, and it literally grabbed the umbrella a couple tables over, and all the leaves were blowing. It was like a little tornado, and it was rather shocking for the folks whose umbrella took off.
That's unbelievable.
And so anyway, a little drama there. And I was river rafting a little while ago, taking a relaxed day, and so I'm still decompressing from that. And so I don't have my boots on. I got my sandals on, my farmer sandals. And so I was actually just decompressing. So if you get a little drama, you get a little wind. I actually heard trees in the background over by the river cracking, and the wind was hard enough. It was causing some trees to really crack and bang. So Who knows? Hey, thanks, guys. A little bit of rain came out of the air. By the way, here in Idaho, a lot of people know this, but we had a horrible fire, largest in the country, going on over towards Sun Valley. And Jen and I were headed to Sun Valley and had to change direction. The smoke was so bad. And I was up in North Dakota a couple days ago and drove back, and it was, it was like driving through the fog. It was so thick. And so, there's a lot of things going on in the country. That's kind of a serious thing. And then at least to get to a little bit of rain, even right now, if it starts raining next week, just get that smoke out of the air. It's not the worst thing in the world. And to take the edge off, so look at a forest fire or something. So if it gets too bad, I'll move inside. But anyway, just put it out. So we're
interesting.
There's things happening that are going on that are not insignificant. And I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the money issues like that out in the economy. But next question, I'll try to answer. I'll let you ask first.
Everybody is in anticipation, and it's going to happen. Supposedly, if it happens on Nino Rodriguez's birthday on the 18th of September, out of all days. Okay, he's a Virgo. I'm a Virgo. I just did a podcast when that was epic. But anyway, the orange jumpsuit is Trump actually going to be indicted and arrested and put in a jumpsuit and paraded around the cameras?
The number, no,
no,
they can have their wet dreams. I don't think that's no.
No.
And I'll tell you why. The reality is that this trial is, it's a state trial about a federal crime.
Mm-hmm.
And the legal basis for holding this trial and doing all this kabuki theater is fraudulent. I think somewhere in here that's going to get reined in. The federal courts are going to step in and rein New York in a little bit, pull the choker chain. And behind the scenes, we've seen some communications from judges and like that. I shouldn't say behind the scenes, but there's been stuff in the open, things that have happened that if you kind of read the tea leaves, the judges at the federal level are getting ready to kind of rein in New York and some of the players. The question is if, New York is going to get the choker chain jerked on them for exceeding their state authorities. And I think they are. And the appeals are in place for the federal courts to intercede in this matter. That said, anything is possible, but I don't really think that you're going to see anybody taken into custody. And then there's been some bullshit statements that the National Guard's present to to assist the police and all this other stuff. And even if that were true, which it's not, it's, quite early in the process, and you wouldn't telegraph what you're doing. So you got 6 guys present who were actually there on something else, and somebody speculates and says, oh, it's because of this. And nobody argues with it. Well, it doesn't make it true. It just means nobody counter statement, to say what was really going on. Somebody, gives idle speculation and they're full of shit. And there's certain authorities that have to be in place to do that. And so let's let it continue to break out. Some of the problem, by the way, just in the community, so many people are so ready to be the first one to say something, and they want to, be the cub reporter, and everybody gets all worked up. But we need to, for all we want to say something, be the first one to, put something out or know it or something like that. So let's be a little more measured, cross the T's, dot the I's. At this exact moment, with so much at stake, let's not race to be wrong. And if anybody's going to do wild speculation at this point, let it be the other guys. In our community, let's be the ones that take a deep breath, check and double check, because even good guys, I'll tell you, there was something that happened just the other day there in Florida, and a politician put something out in the public about the Dominion machines and programs and viruses and all that. And the reality is, what was said was totally wrong. Was reported incorrectly, and uh, that can happen. Mistake can happen, but then when people came through, other patriots that kind of know this material, know what's going on, came through and explained that what was stated was wrong. Once the politician and some people around him had said what they said and were sort of vested in their statements, they didn't want to back off, and they didn't want to, the people involved were trying to be very measured. Hey, just so you know, what you said isn't quite right. Here's the deal, and we're glad to walk you through it. Here's why it's easy to misunderstand. But let's go after, say, Dominion, or things that are real. What somebody told you isn't quite right. Here's why. Well, the people involved, I mean, I'm directly, some of them are members of my coalition, and they're experts. They are world class experts that have been working on this stuff for a very long time. They didn't want something out there that then embarrasses all the people involved because they, misstated something that real experts know isn't and can't possibly be true. And then the people involved were just so vested that they didn't want to hear anything. And they started attacking people, not on the material, but character assassination, other bullshits like that. It's actually upsetting. So within this community, we kind of have to, slow down a little bit, be willing to, if we did misstate something, deep breath, okay, or re-examine, double check. There's going to be stuff coming so fast over the next days and weeks and everybody's going to be reeling. Let's not be the people that make mistakes. Slow down, be a little more careful, and let's get to the right answers and not let anybody, kind of cattle drive, stampede us to rapidly wrong conclusions. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of this team that's forming now? Musk, RFK, and Trump. And Musk, not to get off track again, but I like to diverse a little bit just to make things interesting. But he just put in a bid to buy XRP Ripple, the whole kit and caboodle, the company, the remaining balance of XRP, all of it, for $25 billion. That's raising a lot of eyebrows.
Well, again, as you've stated and others, the system there is well positioned to be a critical tool in the blockchain and crypto operations.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a good business move. There is some other stuff out there that could upstage that, but it wouldn't be today or tomorrow or this week. It's something that's out in the future, and how do you bridge through to that future date the most conveniently? So with that in mind, like so much of this stuff, they have a season, and that season could be worth a good $1 trillion, right? Musk has got pretty good advisors, pretty smart guy.
Yeah, very
so
smart.
I would very slow to bet against him, So,
well, the fact
that
happens. You got the biggest financial transference of wealth coming. XRP is definitely poised in the middle of that whole entire thing. You got RFK and Trump and Musk, all three of them working together, and you got a guy that wants to buy potentially what is going to have a major hand in this biggest transference of wealth as we shift over for a global reset that hopefully is going to be pro-humanity. What do you think RFK's role, for example, is going to be with Trump?
Well, again, it will be some type of an appointment where he is in some type of monitoring or advisory role head of one of the agencies, some investigative board, some advisory board to Trump and Congress. So, it'll be interesting to see what he comes up or what they come up with for him. And as I've said all the way along, I didn't think that it was going to work. Bannon famously said, "How about Trump, JFK for vice president?" The problem is that the person that's vice president has to be ready to instantly take the office. And the problem is that you're talking about really the team. President isn't just a person, it's a whole team around that person that's in office. And in fact, there is just as an aside, the Plum report is about the 9,000 positions that come in and go out of power with a change of party or a president. They're appointed positions. They're not elected. Some of them need congressional approval. Others of them don't. And so you think about it, there's a couple thousand core people that go around the president, but there's other positions too that come into play. So if you go from somebody that was conservative to somebody that's a bit more different thinking, like a JFK, when he was still running as Democratic candidate, the people that gravitate toward him that are all looking to come into office with the change of power would not be the same. And an urgent moment where a vice president would have to step into that position, there's so much that would be in play potentially that it could really be disruptive to the country at a moment of crisis. And so you need somebody that's at least reasonably close and certainly of the same party that in that kind of a moment. And I don't think it would have been appropriate for that reason. And then there's some stuff there. Look, I like Robert. I think he is someone that we need in a position in the Trump administration. He'll be a great advisor, assistant, someplace, but it wouldn't be a VP thing. And so even with the Elon stuff, he has seen a lot of things quite differently than Trump did earlier on. And there's some alignment that's coming. I don't think it's healthy if you're only surrounded with sycophants, people that just yes, 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 and there's no room for disagreement or conversation. Trump is gathering people around him who are pretty solid folks, and he isn't forcing them to just be yes people. And kind of getting ready for this next phase. So that's probably healthy. I don't know how it could be not healthy as long as it's within some certain zone. You can have some disagreements, but at the end of the day, there has to be one person that says, "This is what we're doing. I understand. I get it. Not today. Here's where we're going." And I think Trump has that demeanor that he can afford to have some people around him might say something different. He'll listen. He'll think about it. He's a much better listener than people realize. A very good listener. But once he's heard the things he needs to hear, he's also someone that can be pretty decisive, which is what a president is supposed to do.
Absolutely. Well, you know, as long as he doesn't listen to guys like Hannity anymore, because Hannity, as far as I'm concerned, is a disaster. Probably gave him the worst advice on who to bring in to the White House on Trump's first term ever. I totally despise that man.
Mhm.
Is there any chance at all you think that this vice president pick was the wrong move? First of all, number one, and number two, do you think there might be a chance that he might swap him out and bring in RFK? I think RFK's thinking
No,
and Trump's
no,
thinking are more in line than
no,
this guy, Vance.
no,
No
no.
chance.
You know, this is a CNN, MSNBC, uh, you know, New York Times um, ploy to sow seeds of dissension and have these conversations that make Trump look unsettled or whatever. Um, and I just don't think that's appropriate. In fact, it would do more damage to Trump and his reputation to suddenly dither like that. Um, would Vance step aside, step out? Not likely. I mean, he was vetted. There's certain reasons why he was asked. Um, I don't think it helped the ticket, but the reason for the choices might not be fully apparent yet. And I will say this, and I'm not totally out of school because I think it's out there. The people that are close to the Vance campaign who came out of aspects of the Trump campaign, I mean, they're still there, but they're now shouldered into the Vance campaign, have had their own reservations being around him and in the candidacy. How much of that is just sour grapes and how much is real? You know, going into a campaign at a moment's notice. I've known a couple of different VPs, and you can go over the last several, either party, and it's a very precarious position to be thrown into on a moment's notice. And there's always, differences of opinion about who the VP should have been and why and what's wrong with them and all that. So I don't know, you know, candidates don't usually pick a VP because they're super strong, because they don't want the competition from the VP, and then they don't ever expect to actually be gone. So there's a few things that are in play with the VP and strong personalities upstaging and things like that. So I I think that at this point in time, Vance is here for the duration. And the only other thing I'd add to that, um, when Trump comes back into power, and I've been pretty out there with folks, I'm, on the edge of this and, saying something that's not um, mainstream. But, Trump doesn't come back as president. He maybe talked about, reference to, et cetera. He comes back as commander in chief. And we're coming up on a pause in the election. Let me just add one thing here so that there's clarity as much as possible in this situation, in the fog of an election. Um, the pause isn't just something, say, election day or just prior to it. There's literally probably a dozen, not just two or three, a dozen different mechanisms, any one of which could force a pause in the election cycle. And it also includes, it's not just election day or sometime prior to it, but the certification of the election. The the stuff that's in play right now is to stop the validation process, to claim that there's all sorts of issues and not be able to say that Trump won the election. It's actually a jujitsu move that's in play to do and say the very things that this community, that's probably the majority of people here listening to us right now, wanted done back at 2020, including people that showed up on January 6th. And so the play is kind of like letting go of the rope in tug of war, to say, oh, now, because of all these things that happen in the election process, there's interference, inability to get to a true count, blah, 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 that the reality is we can't let the electors certify this election and not let it be a done deal. And here's the sneaky thing. Imagine that anything happens with Biden, 25th Amendment, he strips the gear, slips on a banana peel, and somewhere before Election Day or after, I think it would be before, but it could be after. I mean, enjoy the show, man. We're drama's ahead. So Kamala becomes president for any number of reasons, some of which we can imagine, many of which we've never even considered. Now she's the seated president. There's all sorts of challenges to her legal authority to be president, based on her birth and things like that, issues that have not been adjudicated yet, even though they should have been. And then you can't certify the outcome of the election. She could remain in the presidency while there's some kind of an emergency moment, trying to figure out how we're going to get congressional certification. And I have one of my advisors, one of the people that's in my coalition, beautiful guy. He's been doing very high-tech election stuff for 40 years. He's probably the longest in the tooth election specialist, I think, in the country at this time, really. And he was actually in the White House as an advisor to Trump in 2020. Beautiful guy. And wrote some important papers that, have been out there and circulated like that. We had gamed this out pretty heavily earlier this year. And he'd said this, a year back, but I was like, well, I don't know if we're quite there yet. But in gaming it out this, back at the beginning of this year, he said it was his belief, based on everything that was happening and everything that seemed to be coming out in the legal maneuvers that some of the attorneys for the Democrats were involved in, and other things that we see in mapping out strategies kind of behind the scenes, state by state. It was his conclusion then that the powers that be on the Democratic Party side were going to try to decertify the ability to, certify elections or verify the results in a certain number of states. When we did that and looked at it, shock of ages, we came out with a 269 to 269 electoral college. I mean, where there was no clear winner. It's a tie. Now, in that basis, the Congress, the Constitution says that the House will then do a vote for the president. Who's the president? And it doesn't have to even be somebody on the ballot. And then the Senate will choose who the vice president is. So you could have a situation where if we supposedly had states evenly tied for the Electoral College, and you couldn't determine who the true winner of the election was, and then Congress and the Senate, one side picks a Republican or a Democrat president, the other side picks the opposite party as the vice president, you could have the basis of some kind of a national conflict that would, potentially lead to civil war. The deep state powers that be that we're fighting in this whole endeavor, nationally and globally, are dreaming in their wet dreams that we will go to civil war in America. That's been the game all the way along, to create a circumstance where Americans would fight Americans, where the states would divide and become non-functional state to state. You know, the business of America's business. If you can't have interstate commerce, if you can't have the free flow of goods between factories and food to the people and utilities and things like that, then you have the basis for initially civil unrest that could eventually evolve into civil war. You know, when the Civil War started 170 years ago, uh, the the start was the representatives from the South just got up and walked out of Congress. So it didn't start with a gunshot. It started politically with people just saying, no, we're not going to be part of this, and we're out and walking away. So things could start at a measured pace and very quickly accelerate. You don't know that, you know, just exactly how it would break. And that's why there's so many angles that are in play and what can happen and how it would break. And again, I think a lot of people think that some of this stuff is completely, totally, perfectly scripted. And I would contend that's not true, that, you know, there's a lot of variations that can and most likely will happen. So you have to kind of take a deep breath and understand and not get too ahead of it or know it all. Even if you have some hint of the direction things are going, there's so many nuances, so many little things that can happen that you got to be prepared for the unexpected and anticipate it. And that's why, even from a business side, America is going to do amazing in the mid to long term from now. But in the short term, we have some just incredible drama. That's why I prefer, rather than trying to guess every last aspect of what's about to happen, I think for most people, the safest route is to try to have tangibles. Doesn't mean just silver and gold, but the stuff that you need to do business, to function, to survive through on the other side. You know, for farmers, it might be a tractor. For other people, it's the tools of their trade or the raw materials that they build and work with in case there's a little bit of a hiccup in the ability of systems to supply stuff for other factories, supply things you need. And then so that you can quickly start back up on the other side of this drama that's ahead. The drama that's ahead isn't Armageddon. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't stop everything forever. We are headed for a incontinuity, incongruity. There's not, you know, there's some kind of inability to make things work right for a period of time. And then they start back up and get moving again, but it's not instant. So if you need certain things to be functional, then you want to kind of get them in place so that you're able to dial back up once the dust settles relatively seamlessly. And then as other things become available and things start to smooth out, you're already hit the ground running, you're viable, you're functional, and you're going. And then if you don't know what that is, that's why things like silver and gold at these prices makes a lot of sense as a store of wealth. You preserve your wealth, don't let it be at risk, especially to paper money and dots and tittles on a computer screen, including, I might add, cryptos. You need to be a little bit reserved. I think it's important to have some of the crypto stuff. I do have myself. In fact, I've got something here in about 2.5 weeks we'll be talking about in that line that I think everybody needs to get their crypto wallet, and I'll explain why and what's a simple way to dip your toe in the ground, you know, in the water and kind of start, but
Now,
and why.
do you remember?
But we'll get to that in a little
Yeah.
bit.
Do you
So
remember the first
that's
time I
what's
interviewed
coming.
you? Yeah. Do you remember the first time I interviewed you like 2.5 years ago? And you were anti-crypto. You were anti-XRP. I had to arm wrestle him, guys. Okay. I
Well,
won.
that's not true. That's not quite true. That's not quite true. No. Hold on. Let's qualify that.
Okay.
I've had crypto all along, and I think I said that at the time.
Well,
so I wasn't
you were anti-XRP. You were anti some of them.
Well, hold on. I wasn't anti-XRP either. What I said was that at that time, I wasn't really. You don't want to bet the farm on it, and there's other stuff that's out there looming.
Yes.
That even though the XRP appears to be extremely well positioned for what is going to happen, it doesn't mean that it's solely in that condition or the only option, because there is some stuff out there that could also be a good one. So myself, whereas I think, my perception of what you were saying was that maybe, nearly the only game in town or the best bet.
No.
I'm a little bit more reserved. There's some other ones that are good too. So I wouldn't want anybody to put all their eggs in one basket. And so I wouldn't couch that complete. And then the only other thing I would say within that realm, Trump himself said, the crypto thing's kind of a racket, and it is.
Yeah.
But so is paper money, so is the gold bullion, so is art.
And I agree with you.
Have to go into it as
Juan, I agree with you. There are going to be a few players that are going to be tokens to really own and watch. Amber and I own quite a bit of the XLM and the XDC and the ISO tokens, that family, which is, gold and silver backed. So yes, he's absolutely correct. 100,000%. But the way that Trump has positioned himself to be the cryptocurrency president is absolutely fascinating, because he has to pay homage, obviously, to Bitcoin, because if it wasn't for Bitcoin that paved the way, the rest of us wouldn't be here. So respects to Bitcoin in that respect.
Well, okay. So, let me just add a few little things. It's funny. I've got a squirrel that's up in the tree above me. It's kind of cute. Let me just add a couple of key things here. First off, I don't know if I can zoom in on him for you or not. I guess it won't let me zoom, but he's up in the tree up there. Let me just add a couple of things here. Bitcoin was created by DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Program. And so why was it created? What's the purpose? In military terms, we have to kind of know what our enemies are capable of, what they want to do, get there first, own it within the blockchain and stuff like that. In gaming out, how do you take over the world? If you're an alien, land on the spaceship, what are your options as an individual? What do you have that you can bring to it? The man who fell to earth, David Bowie. Or as a team, you don't have overwhelming numbers, but you can work together. Or a larger force. Independence Day. You're the locust. You're coming here to clean everything out and move on to the next planet when it's stripped bare. And with that in mind, DARPA does lots of projects. This is one of them. Had Hillary Clinton become president, I said this in the very first interview with you, I've repeated it numerous times. The intent was to flip America into the crypto world, including with this DARPA-created Bitcoin and other similar coins, to have a crisis, Gesara Next type stuff, and to stabilize the country by switching us all into a crypto that they manage, and they can decide whether or not you get access to your digital wallet based on whether you're a good kid or a bad kid, and do all of the social checklist stuff that you need in order to be able to be a member of society. And even over the recent period, coming into and through the Trump administration, there was intense manipulation by a couple of key players, who were creations out of the DARPA system. So think of, my squirrel friend just showed up here. Think of Zuckerberg. Look, Zuckerberg's a creation of DARPA. Facebook is a creation of DARPA. Who woke up what day and decided to take a project that cost $500 million, $500 million, $100 million a year for 5 years inside the DARPA system, paid for by every American taxpayer? Who decided that the LifeLog project could be flipped into the hands of Zuckerberg under the ruse that he created this, under the ruse that the Winklevoss twins also participated in this? A complete fabrication. Okay.
Of course.
And then, of course, incorporated February 4th, 2004, a breaking the 8 number doubled, which is part of the occult hidden magic that these guys like to do. So with that in mind, this social media thing is something from within the military intelligence corporate operations to capture control of a significant portion of the American economy and communications. What's the deal with Facebook? Why would a military operation want to get in there and have some piece of social media? Because they want to be able to be ahead of the communications and data, and have Americans give them everything they need to know to track and monitor and anticipate where every person in America go, and then also to be able to tweak how they think and what they're doing and add little things. It's a militarized operation.
Totally
and
agree.
Some people behind this want to control that for their own purposes, not just inside the U.S., but globally. So with that in mind, a similar thing was done with the transacting, anticipating where the world was going in these gaming operations to take control of the world. And Bitcoin was brought in, knowing that it was a initial spot and to be built out into other stuff, and that other technologies would come on board. Bitcoin being kind of the gold bar mentality, and then other variations coming in to where eventually you would get variants like XRP that would be better for one way of transacting on volume, and other things like Ethereum that's slower but has other positive aspects, which is really just the banker's coin, and steady at the wheel type of a thing, and not as rapid or as volatile for various reasons.
And I totally agree with you, by the way.
And merging all of these together down over time to where those technologies that are the best and emerge through this, it's like Microsoft Windows. They have a core, but then they go out and find other tech. And when it's reached a certain point of development, Microsoft didn't develop those things. They just went out and bought the company and incorporated it into their stuff. Those other cryptos will be acquired in transactions, not unlike what Musk is wanting to do, and then sewn together with other things to create something stronger. And down the road, you won't even hear the word XRP or Ripple. It's just going to be whatever chain that it's incorporated into. It's like what happened in the monetary accounts. You used to have Discover and Excel and 15 other names. You go to the bank machine, you'd have to look, is my thing that my bank uses on this bank machine, if you want to get it from a bank machine in a different country or a different city or whatever. And now you don't see that at all. They just take, you put your Visa card in, you put your debit card in. They tell you, well, it's going to be a little bit of a fee, but you can get it here, and we're not your bank, but we do it. They don't waste time trying to tell you all the details. It'll be same in the cryptos. They'll all be sewn together, and to get these rapid, quick, seamless things. What would be the precursor that is going to cause people to decide that they're going to have to do their transactions that way. It's what's coming with the paper currencies, and it's well underway. It's very, very disturbing. I've been on aspects of this for, literally, the last 35 years, but especially the last, several months and even weeks, even this last week. There's huge things in play that, like one of my guys said the other day, how do you sleep at night? Well, if you know what's going on, you don't. It's
Well,
very, very disturbing stuff.
Were you aware of the fact that I am the guy who cornered Satoshi Nakamoto, aka David Schwartz, CTO of Ripple XRP Labs, at the Vegas convention? Were you aware of that?
I think because you told me so, yeah.
Yeah, and he did not. He actually admitted that. Yeah, he goes, I could be one of the main Satoshis. That was the end. That was the end result. I mean, basically, I got him in a point where I said, you work for DARPA. You put up a patent on blockchain technology in '88. You work for DARPA 2000, 2007, 2008, the housing bubble, 2009, Bitcoin is born. I said, there's no coincidences. You were there. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I think I might be one of the main Satoshis. I got him pretty much. That video, by the way, Juan, went around the world 10 million times. I mean, I was busy meeting with a lot of fan club and taking pictures and all of that with my wife at the XRP convention, and people took that video and ran. And it went beyond hyper viral. So, and that video still exists out there today. Yeah. So let's get down.
And the only thing I would say is that was the team. That was not an individual. That was a team, though. Yes.
Yes, but he said I'm potentially one of the main Satoshis. I got him to admit that at least. But anyway, let's get back to Kamala Harris. Is Kamala Harris going to really step in the ring with Donald Trump for a debate?
Well, if you really get right down to it, nobody thought that any of the Bidens would have stepped in the ring with Trump. He had 5 options, and they brought one in there, and it was miserable. So, is Kamala gonna give it a shot, or the people behind the scenes puppeteering Kamala gonna do it? Yeah, probably. And the only thing I'd say is that it might be even more disturbing for the American people. I actually, and I'm not being superfluous here. If you listen to Kamala, it's actually painful. Even I would say more painful personally to try and follow a thread of thought than it is with what you got from Biden. Might be a story, but at least you can follow the storyline with Biden. Might not be the truth, but at least there's some kind of storyline. With Kamala, it's I'll tell you, I had a person that was a very, very smart person, 4.0 from first grade to high school, and he was actually had a full ride scholarship to one of the main universities in the country and a basketball scholarship. And he was taunted during a summer camp before he started college with other students getting ready for the season. He was taunted about having never once taken a drag on a marijuana cigarette. Church-going kid from middle of the country, from Nebraska. And so in this dare and everything else, he, went ahead and took some puffs off of a marijuana cigarette. Of course, he didn't know that it was laced with angel dust.
Oh, no.
And the other people involved were having a big snicker, and it was funny and all that. And unfortunately, he was damaged severely.
Oh, no.
It caused some type of a synaptic break, and he literally was never, he was never able to recover from it. In fact, After he got out of the hospital, he was in for quite a while. He had to be trained to be able to eat his food, to do everything. Never lived on his own. This occurred back in the early '80s, and just recently passed away. Had to be taken care of the rest of his life. When he would talk, um, he would sound he would try so hard, and he would sound really, and he'd be totally sincere what he was saying, and he'd get through a sentence or two, and then it would go somewhere else, and then it would go somewhere else, and you couldn't follow anything of what he was trying to say to you. And he was trying so hard, and you knew it was real, but it didn't go anywhere. It didn't add up. It was incoherent. It was painful. And I'm just telling you that, to me, there is some type of similarity to the way that Kamala presents. It's not near as severe, probably, as this other person, but he also had a problem with the laughter. It was some type of a byproduct of that particular drug. And you know, anybody can argue, say whatever. I hear that person's way of talking. When I hear Kamala, it's painful, and um, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just stating
Fact.
my perception. Something's wrong there. Uh, you know, I I think I sent you earlier the turtle story.
I'm not sure. I've been a busy guy for the last
Oh,
few weeks.
the turtle on a post.